Isochemie. Use the blue technology.
Welcome to the Isochemie Training Centre. Today I will explain how to use the in-front-of-wall installation system Isotop Windframer Type 3. So what do we need? We need the system profile. This is made from a highly compressed polystyrene EPSF, which is a flame retardant material. We need the correct system adhesive, the correct mounting bolts for the masonry and window system, an aluminium bracket, but this is optional and I'll explain what to do with it later, and an insulation profile, which is optional and can be used to adapt the system to thermal insulation systems. I'll show you how to use this at the end of the video. The instructions are very important and you should read them carefully before you start. Before installing the Isotop Windframer Type 3, we need to prepare the surface of the wall. You have to get rid of any loose parts. If there are any flakes or loose masonry, scrape these off using a spatula or chisel. The system can usually be used without a primer, which means that you don't need to prime the surface of the wall unless the surface is very sandy. So a surface where, if you rub it, you come away with a lot of sand residue in your hand, then we'd recommend that you use a primer. You can cut the system profiles with any commercially available saw. You can use a miter saw, a jigsaw, a normal hand saw, or even a so-called hot blade to cut the system elements down to size. The hot blade is heated using the mains power and then melts its way through the material. So how do we determine the correct dimensions for the lower system profile? It's quite easy. The reference dimensions are always the dimensions of the reveal, in other words, the dimensions for the window opening. The system profiles overlap at the corners and are flat against each other. This means that we have a protrusion of 8 cm on both sides. Therefore, the first dimension for cutting the lower system profile is calculated as the reveal opening plus 2 times 8 cm. The next step is to apply the adhesive to the system profile. The nozzle is cut into a V shape and we need a specific amount of adhesive which, as we can see quite nicely here, you need to apply in 2 continuous lines on the rear of the system profile. And a second line so that we have 2 continuous lines and we just go straight over the cutouts for the brackets and right up to the end of the profile. It is important that you have 2 continuous lines of adhesive because they ensure an airtight seal between the system profile and masonry. Then attach the system profile to the wall. I have already marked the position of the profile on the wall, including an extra 8 cm on each side. All you have to do is press the system profile onto the wall and, now for the important part, rub it up and down the wall using small movements. The rubbing motion distributes the adhesive evenly across the surface of the wall and will fill any uneven sections. This creates an even layer of adhesive. It is squeezing out a little bit at the top here, but this is a good thing. Then you have to screw it down tightly. There is a corresponding mark on the profile to make the process easier. The small grooves marked with FP, which stands for fixing point, are positioned at optimum intervals between the edge of the masonry and the mounting distances between the respective screws. Only 3 fixing points are needed at the bottom. Drill the hole, but importantly, blow out the dust. This is the only way in which the screw will hold and secure the weight. The screw head should not be screwed in too far, just enough so that about half the screw is in the material. Now you can check to see if it is level using a spirit level and then continue with the other fixing points. You have to blow the dust out of the holes again here. The third screw is installed in the middle of the other two. The bottom system profile is installed, and when we cut it down to size, a small piece was left over. We can still use this. The system profiles have a dovetail joint, and this means that you can connect a new profile with the remaining part of the old one. The connection must have an airtight seal. This is why there are small grooves at the sides where we will now apply some adhesive. Then when the pieces are pushed together, they are connected in a clean and airtight manner. The installation process now carries on using the same process as we did for the bottom profile. Apply the adhesive. Note that here we have to apply some to the corner and the area where the vertical and horizontal profiles will join together, and this will create an airtight seal. Now we come to the optional aluminium bracket. I showed you the cutouts for the brackets at the beginning of the video. This is where you can insert the bracket if you need to. It fits flush into the groove. What do we need these brackets for? They are needed if you have a particularly heavy window casement. For example, for soundproof windows or burglar resistant glazing. So large casements and high casements that rest a corresponding amount of weight on the fixing points. Aluminium brackets are not needed for small windows, but you have the option to use them if you have a large window. Here I have a small model so that you can see it. Here is the aluminium bracket, and we can see how deep the bracket sits in the cutout. These here are the screws that will screw into the aluminium bracket when the window is attached to the frame and will increase its stability and lead to a better and more long-term fixing solution. The aluminium bracket is simply pushed into the cutout. We can reach the drilled hole easily through the fixing point on the front of the profile. These are always positioned so that they line up with the drilled hole for the aluminium bracket. So the Isotop Windframer Type 3 is installed. The opening is rebuilt and the window can now be installed. You should ideally seal the smooth surface using a multifunctional sealing tape so the 3-level sealing system is achieved. It can also be sealed using a film or spray sealant. You can use whichever one of your particular construction needs suits the job. Each system profile has a so-called system groove on the front. This groove is used to install additional profiles if needed, for example if you want to install a windowsill connection profile. The advantage here is that you can add an additional sealant in the lower section, always a critical section, even though the thermal insulation system, facade or clinker layer is not yet present. Once it has been cut down to size and has the appropriate tongue, it is inserted here at the front. Whether you apply an adhesive here or just screw it in depends on your situation, like whether you need a technical connection, air tightness or driving rain impermeability or not. This is how you attach the insulation profile, and I'll show you how you can get the appropriate extension at the bottom with this incline. There are also additional profiles available for the lateral connections, 30mm, 50mm or cut down to the size needed. I've cut these down to size so that I can show you. You can see just how easy it is to install our Isotop Windframer Type 3. It provides the perfect base to install windows at a later date, and remember, use the blue technology.